Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom. The third time is a charm, right? Okay, hallelujah. Mr. Cobb, before we get started, all right, we're going to go ahead and bring up Akoti Shoshana. She's going to do the announcement for the week, give us an update on the festivals and all of that good stuff there. Okay.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
These are the announcements for September. Class starts at 1:30 every Sabbath. This is the new time. Please arrive 30 minutes early for meet and greet. We need to start on time, Torah. Vibrate cell phones, electronic gadgets, so that it does not interfere with recording. When excusing yourself from class, please walk behind the camera. Keep talking at a minimal. When talking with others, recording picks up your voices. 6 a.m. daily prayer with the Myrtle Beach Mishpachah. The dial-in number is 513-386-0000. Access code is 644975.
Good.
Okay. Those who are not attending Sukkot in Israel, we have Sukkot locally. We need to get a count to determine the pricing. And Sister Shia could probably give us more after I do the announcements, an update. Okay. The last 3 dates of the year, the Feast of Trumpets, the Shofar, is coming up Tuesday, September 19th at sundown to Wednesday, the 20th at sundown. I'll repeat that. The Feast of Trumpets, the Shofar, Tuesday, September 19th sundown to Wednesday, the 20th at sundown. The Atonement, Yom Kippur, is Thursday, the 28th at sundown from Friday, the 29th at sundown. I'll repeat those dates. The Atonement, Yom Kippur, Thursday, the 28th sundown to Friday, the 29th sundown. Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, is October 3rd, Tuesday sundown to October 4th, Wednesday sundown. I'll repeat the dates. Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, October 3rd, Tuesday sundown to October 4th, Wednesday sundown. The attire is all white, but that is subject to change for the feast. The Great Day, October 10th, is Tuesday sundown to October 11th, Wednesday sundown. The Great Day, October 10th, Tuesday sundown to October 11th, Wednesday sundown. Okay, we have the dress code. Males are not to wear sleeveless shirts, t-shirts, designer or other, short pants, tight-fitting pants, fleece or jogging pants, or any other revealing pant. All females are required to wear head covering upon entering the building. Females are not to wear pants, jeans, sweatpants, etc. Short skirts, mini dresses, halter tops of any kind, revealing splits, tight-fitting or cleavage, complementing attire. No clothes should display words that advocate or depict violence, drugs, alcohol, sex, or any other message that can be disruptive to the class. Give all donations to Shammai or Shia. Envelopes are now available. Please see Sister Shia. All newcomers, please see Korah or Shia to give your contact information, email, phone number, etc., so that we can keep you updated on current events. All Akotis who are not attending class, please see or contact Sadiqa or Shia. If brothers are not going to be in class, please contact Yahuah. Congregation of Yashra'al's TV show airs on Comcast 25 at 8 p.m. every Sunday. Please support and tell all your family and friends. Akotis will prepare the food after class, and today is the financial report.
Oh, okay.
Later?
Okay.
Because I know you said every
Right.
2 weeks.
Right.
Okay.
Later. Absolutely.
That's it for the announcements.
Okay, hallelujah. So we have Akoti Shia. Any updates?
Did you guys
Yes.
discuss scope?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you make that announcement.
Okay.
In terms of the financial report, I sent that to you.
Oh, okay.
I guess we can do that afterwards.
Okay. All right. So with Sukkot here in Georgia, what we're going to be doing, what Warriors will be doing actually is They would be observing the first day and the last day. And Maureen, that's going to be here? Or we'll talk about that later. Okay, then so they're going to be observing the first day and the last day. Okay, so the first day is Shabbat, and the last, actually the seventh and the 8th day are set apart days. So we'll let you know more about that ASAP. All right? Okay, Mr. McCall, we're about to get started. Again, we want to begin today's service by giving all esteem to the Father of Yahuah for sending his Son, Yahusha, Mashiyach, to make restitution of sins for the nation of Yashra'al. Now, it's very important that we understand the redemptive role of Mashiyach, the Father sending him to make restitution for the sins, for the transgressions for the nation of Yashra'al. So the reason why I'm going to need a little class participation today is if someone was to ask you, and they were to say, well, listen, well, what do you mean when you say all esteem is due to the Father in regard to Scripture? All esteem is due and subject to the Father. If someone was to ask Miriam, okay, O.T. Miriam, you did the Father's prayer, I'm going to put you back in my mind again, all right? Since you did a good job. Is it your understanding that all esteem is due and subject to the Father? And if someone was to ask you, what would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That we give him credit for everything.
Absolutely. And so that's going to be the, when we did the prologue here, we wanted to make sure that everybody understood that all esteem is given to the Father, and nothing can exist. Absolutely nothing can exist or abide without the Father. The Father, he is the nucleus, the source of all things. And the only way to understand the Father is for the Father to lower himself. And I use that word lower himself very, very loosely. Okay, to lower himself in parts or levels of degrees. And that first level of degree is consciousness. All right? You have to have consciousness. And so what is consciousness according to Scripture? We're going to go to the book of Bereshit, or the book of Genesis, and we're going to find out what is consciousness according to Scripture. According to Scripture, watch how everything ties in with Torah. We're going to go to Genesis, the second chapter, actually. The second chapter. And we're going to go with verse 7. I'm going to read it first. It says, And Yahuah Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. A living soul. So next what we have to do is obviously dissect Genesis, the second chapter, verse 7. It says, And Yahuah formed, and the word formed is the Hebrew word Yatsar, spelled Y-A-T-S-A-R. I write that down here on the board. Yatsar. Y-A-T-S-A-R. And it's the Strong's number 33, 35. That's the Strong's number. And the word Yatsar means to squeeze, to mold, to fashion. It comes from the root word Yatsa, Y-A-T-S-A. All of this is going to be very, very important. So the root word is Yatsa, and it means to spread out, to lay. So Yahuah formed the man by giving him his, this word is going to be important all day long. He gave man his genetic marker. Now, why do I say that the Father, when he formed man, the Hebrew word Yatsar, and this man became a conscious living being. When you read it in Hebrew, it's going to be a whole lot different from what we are reading now in the Masoretic text. So I'm just going to read just the first line here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, U, Yat, Yazar, Yahuah, Elohim, and then they have, right before you get to the word form, they have this letter here. And in the ancient Hebrew, it would be this way. So when he formed man, what the Father actually did is that he gave Adam his genetic marker, and that genetic marker is the Aleph Tav. And so when you read this now in Hebrew, again, right after the word form, you have the genetic marker, you have the Aleph Tav. That's going to be very, very important. By giving him his genetic marker, the dust of the ground, and he breathed, and the Hebrew word for breathe is the Hebrew word nefak. Let me erase some of this here. Nefak. That's the Strong's number 5301. So, and it means to kindle, to breathe, to resuscitate. Now, everybody understands in the creation story that Adam and Eve were given the commission to replenish. Right? We all good. To replenish. But before man can actually become a conscious being, he has to have the genetic marker, okay, on his genome. Let's see the word genome. Talking about his genetic code. Genetic code, we're talking about the DNA. So this genetic marker here is actually a DNA strand that's on everybody's human genome. So read it again. And Yahuah Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The word breath now is nashama. We erase some of that here. This will all make sense. And that word is nashama. And that's the Strong's number 5397. And that means divine inspiration. The man was given intellect. The man was given the Ruach HaKodesh. So he now has the ability now to discern. To discern. In order for the Father to put you in a position of authority, to be able to make decisions, you need to have the ability now to discern. And so we begin to look at the other definitions that I gave, as with nefak, 5301, it means to kindle, to breathe, to resuscitate. I'll read on down. Nashama is the Strong's number again, 5397. It means divine inspiration, intellect, ruach, the ability to discern. So he also gave this man of life, and man became a living soul. And the Hebrew word for the soul is, we all know that word, nefesh, right? Nefesh. And the word nefesh means activity of the will of consciousness. So now this man now has will and desire. Very important. Now, I'm going to read it again a little bit slower and see if everybody caught it. Verse 7. Remember, there were no parentheses, no question marks, no semicolons, or anything like that in the ancient Hebrew. Verse 7, and Yahuah formed man of the dust of the ground. Before we have the Nashma, before we have the Nefesh, before we have the Ruach, he is just a man. What the Father is looking to do now is to upgrade this man to a level of consciousness. Just like today, we might see a lot of people walking around amongst us. They're walking around, but they're not conscious, so they don't have the Nashma, the Nefesh, and they don't have the ability to discern. So what the Ruach actually does now, it puts you in a position now where you're able to discern. This genetic marker, I'm going to write it down again, is going to be very important. Without the genetic marker, because we talked about genetics here, without this genetic marker, you're considered dead. You have to have this genetic marker, and we need to find out a little bit more, what is that genetic marker? Okay, Mr. McCarthy. So we talked about the consciousness is what we all must have in order to have this relationship with the Father. We also want to bring to everybody's attention, is making sure that we understand the Father of Yahuah. Because he can only deal with us when we're in a conscious state. If we're not conscious, that's going to put us in a totally different category. So the Ruach is going to be very important. So let's now look at the book of Colossians. The book of Colossians. And we're going to the 2nd chapter. So right now, what I'm trying to do is make sure that we understand the introduction to the class. We talked about all the esteem that's being given to the Father, and how the Father sent his Son, Yahusha Mashiyach, to be that atoning sacrifice, or the restitution of sins was made through the Messianic. Let's see if everybody is still on board. If there's any questions, please stop me. Let's first go to Colossians, the 2nd chapter. The 2nd chapter, let's start with verse, let's do it this way, let's go to old King James here. Actually, it's Colossians, the 1st chapter, excuse me. It's Colossians, the 1st chapter. It says in verse 3, 1 and 3. We give thanks to the Father, or the power head, and the Father of our sovereign, Yahusha HaMashiach, praying always for you. So this is what the Talmudim, the disciples of the Mashiyach, were always doing. Now let's jump to verse 12. And may with joy give thanks to the Father of the power head, who hath fitted us for a portion of the inheritance of the saints of life. Verse 13. And have rescued us from the dominion of darkness, and transferred us into the kingdom of his beloved Son. Now, the question is, in verse 13, who has delivered us from the power of darkness? Right, hallelujah. So Yahuah has delivered us from the power of darkness, by whom we have redemption and remission of sins. And so we have redemption and remission of sins through who? Hallelujah. Yahusha, Mashiyach. Who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, which is again the Mashiyach, and the firstborn of all creatures. And by him was created everything that is in Shamayim, or heaven, and on earth, all that is seen and all that is unseen, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or authorities, everything was through him and was created by him. So in verse 16, the question is, who are we talking about here? It says by and by him. Right. The reason why we all should be very particular with the scripture, because, and I'm glad that everybody was able to see this, is that word, in the King James it has, for by him, it should actually be for in him. And the operative word here is going to be the word in. All right, in. So the goal now is that when the Father now actually breathed inside of man, the main thing that we're now talking about now, what actually resuscitated the man, what was in him, which was the nefesh. Well, he became a nefesh, but the nashma, we're talking about how he breathed in him the life, and the word, that life is kai, and we saw that, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, we're on time this time. We have life. So man now becomes a living being. So in him is now the nefesh, the nashim, the kai, and so now the man is now a living being. So again, for in him were all things created that were in heaven, that were in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principles or powers, all things were created in him and for him. Verse 17. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. So again, where it says, and he is before all things, we are referring to who? Right, so Yahuah is before all things, and to him all things consist. And he is the head of the body. So who would be now the head of the body? Right. So when we see the way that it is broken down in scripture here, is that we have the head of the body is actually now, we have Yahuah will be the head, and after that we have Yahusha, and the Mashiyach, the Father now gave this dominion to the Son. Then after that you have the man, the woman, and then you have the other nations. That's the chain of command, right here. You can't break rank. So again, so verse 18, and he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, which is the Mashiyach, that in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell. So that in the Mashiyach, all the power, all the dwellness of the power head, Yahuah, okay, is now inside of the Mashiyach, acting on behalf of the man, and the man is acting on behalf of the woman, and the nation of Yashra'al is acting now on behalf of the other nations. That's the chain of command. So, to prove this now, let's go to the book of Yeshayahu. Everything that I just said, you can go to the book of Yeshayahu. And we're going to the book of Isaiah. Book of Isaiah. '44. Let's see where we're going to go. 44:24. Isaiah or Yeshayahu 44:24. Thus saith Yahuah. All right? Thus saith Yahuah, your Redeemer. So the Redeemer is Yahuah. Thus saith Yahuah, your Redeemer. And he that he that formeth you from the womb, I am Yahuah that maketh all things. I am Yahuah that maketh all things, that stretch forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth forth abroad the earth by myself. So again, the grand creator of everything is Yahuah, and we have the Mashiyach acting on behalf of the Father. The book of John. The book of John. Let's go to John 1, verse 3. We are proving the Messiah, we are proving the Father, and nothing can exist outside of the Father. Everything was by his hand, and without him was not anything whatever that existed. The book of John, the 5th chapter. Yes, sir. We want to make sure that we always give thanks and honor to the Father. Nothing can exist outside of the Father. And if we have those basic ingredients in order, we should have no problems understanding or understanding the Scripture. And Mashiyach answered and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say to you, the Son, which is the Mashiyach, can do nothing of his own pleasure, but what he seeth the Father do, for what thing the Father doeth, these in like manner doeth the Son. Any questions, Mr. Carr? You good? Oh, John, the 5th chapter, verses 17 and 19. The 5th chapter, verses 17 through 19. But Mashiyach said unto them, My Father worketh until now, and I work. And for this the Yahudim sought the more to kill him. I'm in the same one. No, see, I'm on the next one now. I'm on John 5, 17 and 19 now. That's where we at, right? John 5, 17 and 19?
You read it right.
Oh, okay. For this the Yahudim sought more to kill him, not only because he had broken the Shabbat, but because he had said of Elohim that he was his father, and he had equaled himself with the Father. And the Mashiyach answered and said to them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of his own pleasure, but what he seeth the Father do, for what things the Father doeth, these in like manner doeth the Son. And one more, Mishpachah, we're going to go to the book of Psalms, 33, verse 6, and if we can have our key brother Frank to read that for me. The book of Psalms, the book of Tehillim, 33, verse 6. Excuse me. Book of Psalms,
Psalms 33, verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
By the word of Yahuah were the heavens made.
By the word of who?
Of Yahuah.
And what is the word of Yahuah?
Torah.
God. became flesh through, right, exactly. Torah means instructions. Read on.
By the word of Yahuah were the heavens made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So now that we have that established, the redemptive role of the Mashiyach, in order for man now to have this intimate relationship with the Father, he has to be, or he needs to be, a conscious being. Now, the next subject. I'm going to title this one here now, The Misunderstanding of David, or Yahuah. So the question now becomes, who was David? And above anything else, he is best known for putting away, or putting Uriah on the front line. Okay, the Hittite. And taking his woman, his wife, Uriah's wife, and David went into her, and they produced Solomon. Do anybody have any more else on David? Because this is pretty much about all I ever hear about David, how he put Uriah on the front line. Right. Okay, let's go through some of the things here. For one, anybody know why the father forgave David for this heinous crime here?
He repented.
Exactly. And where can you find that in Scripture? The book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms, the 51st chapter. Because I see David here, but Yahuah here a little bit different. And this is what causes a lot of problems. All right, here we go. David, Yahuah. Psalms of David, when Nathan the prophet came into him after he had gone into Bathsheba, David said, now as he begins to pray, have mercy upon me, O Elohim, according to thy loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Whenever we see the word blot out transgressions, first thing that should come to mind is what? Atonement, right? And the one that can actually do that atonement, that office was given to? Right. All right, so we'll keep everything in its correct perspective. Because only the Mashiyach now can actually blot out the transgressions. So he said, now wash me thoroughly from my iniquity. This is the job of the Mashiyach. And cleanse me from my sin. But this also comes through now with prayer, what we call tefillah. So prayer is going to be key. And having a sincere heart. For David said, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sins is ever before me. Against you, against only have I sinned and done this evil in your sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, when thou judgest. Anything and everything that we go through, where the Father is always justified in his punishment towards those that he loves. Again, the Father is always justified when he places the sentence on the person now that commits sin. Always justified. Behold, David said, I was shapen in iniquity, which is sin, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Make me to bear or to hear joy and gladness. David is saying, make me to hear joy and gladness, right? What is David talking about when he says, let me hear? Make me to hear. Here is actually Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, the 4th verse, right? Hear, O Yahuah, our Elohim is one, he's Echad. So David is now asking now to hear the Torah. And again, the Torah is the instructions. This is how a man is justified, through Torah. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which I have broken may rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and again, blot out, that word blot out now is referring to atonement, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a right ruach or spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not the set-apart spirit that we had talked about in Genesis 2 and 7. All this is tying in, all right? Because whenever a person is not in proper alignment with the Mashiyach, he's considered dead. Just like he talks about the valley of dry bones, and can these bones live? At that point when Ezekiel was asking, can these bones live? The bones are actually dead. And the Father begins to breathe on these bones, so these bones now, or these people now become resuscitated. All right, so we had talked about earlier, Adam was given the commission to replenish the earth. So at one point, man was not a conscious being, and so we're going to show down here is that what the Father actually is doing now, he's going to take a man, this Adam, and he's going to upgrade him and make him a conscious being.
So in other words, it's like a newborn baby.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Things have to be explained. All right, I'll go there then. Things have to be explained. When we begin to look at the human genome, you start to do, we look at archaeology, they're showing different classes of people. If there was not a Homo sapien, because we are Homo sapiens, if there was a pre-magnum or a prehistoric man, and if this man needed to be upgraded, as it says in Genesis 2 and 7, something needs to happen to this man to upgrade him. And when you look in scriptures, Genesis 2 and 7 again, when you look at it in Hebrew, the word Yashra'al that I have brought out earlier, it means to form, to squeeze, or to fashion. But right after this word here, we have, again, the Aleph Tav. That's the genetic marker. So just keep that in mind, all right? I don't want to go too far off this thing here. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It says, verse 10, create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and make not thy take not thy set apart spirit from me. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, while in the garden, we always say that they were enlightened. Is that right? Enlightened beings. They had that orb, that light upon them. But when they were kicked out of the garden, that light was no longer there. So they now they were just regular beings, or human beings, Homo sapiens. So there's a difference now when you're in the presence of the Father, you're now an enlightened being. David now doesn't want the Father now to take that ruach or that light from him. We never want the Father to take that light from us. We see this now, the first sign of this light here, the Hebrew word for orb. We see this light now when Moshe goes up to the top of the mountain. When he comes down, he's a lightened being. They can't behold the face of Moses now because he was just in the presence of the omnipotent, the all-powerful, the Mashiyach here. And so now his countenance changed. We then see another situation of this happening now when we see the Mashiyach takes John and Peter up to the mount and he transfigures himself. I'll say, so he's now back into his original state before he came here on earth. He's now a lightened being. So we never again want the Father now to take that Ruach from us, because we would then be considered a dead people. All right? So David is saying a whole lot here. We're going to keep on going, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. Let's see, verse 14. Deliver me from the blood guiltiness, O Elohim, thou Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahuah, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. For thou desirest not sacrifice. So the Father is not looking for sacrifice, else would I give it. Thou delightest not in burnt offerings. The sacrifice of Elohim is a broken heart. So this is what Morin actually talked about a couple of weeks ago, when he talked about the different types of offerings. This is what the Father is asking for. The Father is asking for a broken spirit, a contrite heart. The sacrifice of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrary heart, O Elohim, thou would not despise. But good in thy good pleasures unto Zion build thy walls of Jerusalem. Then thou shalt be pleased with the sacrifices of righteousness, with burnt offerings, whole burnt offerings. Then shalt thou offer a bullock upon thy altar. So the whole thing now is not to commit the sin. Not to commit the sin. And Torah teaches us not to commit the sin. So one of the reasons why I like David, so much, is because he had a willing heart, he loved the Father, and after he did whatever it is that he did wrong, he was sincere and never committed the act again. And so that's what the Father is asking us to do, is when we come to him, is that we wholeheartedly, without any bitterness or gripe, we come into the Father and ask him for forgiveness. If we can do it that way, there's no problems. This is the reason why we talk about the Moedim so much in the festivals of Yahuah. Because right now we're in the month of forgiveness. We must forgive and love one another. If that's not going to happen, the Father will never hear your prayers. Because you have that stench or that recessiveness about you. So we're going to talk about that too. Because anything left unattended becomes recessive. And this is the reason why the Father had to send the Mashiyach, because man was beginning to regress. So to get man back on the right page again, he needed to again send the Son, and we're going to show us the importance of the Mashiach's blood. Now, it's because of David's sincerely asking for forgiveness. And he said, I'm not justifying wickedness. However, did not the Father tell, we talk about Uriah, let me just write this down, but I want everybody to stay with me here, because we're about to go in a little bit here. And if there's any questions, please ask me what's going on. We had Uriah the Hittite, right? He's a Hittite. Anybody have any other reasons why the Father forgave David regarding the situation with the marriage of Bathsheba to Uriah? No problem. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. And again, we're not justifying what David did. Put that out there again. And Rob's, I can't make sure that you have this loud and clear. I am not justifying what David did. Bathsheba was married to Uriah the Hittite. Look at the instructions that the Father gave the nation of Yashra'al. And again, this is not personal. If there's a problem, the problem's with the Father, not with me. I'm just reading it the way that it is in Scripture. When Yahuah your Elohim shall bring thee into the land, whether thou goest to possess it, and cast out many. Oh, excuse me, Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. I thought everybody about to do the wave here. I see them holding their hands. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right. So Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, verse 1 through 6. And we're talking about Uriah the Hittite. When Yahuah your Elohim shall bring you, the nation of Yashra'al, into the land, whether you, Israel, go to possess it, and have cast out many nations before you, the Hittites. Huh?
So the nation wasn't supposed to...
She was not supposed to be with Uriah. And have cast out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. Verse 2, and when Yahuah your Elohim shall deliver them before you, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenants with them, nor show mercy unto them, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto your son. For they shall turn away your son from following me, that they may serve other Elohims. So will the anger of Yahuah be kindled against you, and destroy you suddenly. But this shall you deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their images with fire. For thou or you are a set-apart people unto Yahuah your Elohim. Verse 7 and 6, in case you didn't hear it. For you are a set-apart people unto Yahuah your Elohim. Yahuah your Elohim hath chosen you to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So the question is now, we're going to look at this word right here. Salvation. Can everybody receive salvation? The answer would have to be lo. In Hebrew, it would have to be no. If the scriptures is telling us not to make any covenants with these 7 nations here, to utterly destroy them, there should be no covenants made with them to utterly destroy these people. Just in case that wasn't good enough. Because we know how our people are, right? You know how we are. Well, maybe the Father meant this. Maybe he meant that. Maybe I have a good friend here, a good friend there. Maybe the Father can change his ways, and blah, 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 and everything like that. You know, so there's always a whole story behind what we like to do. Deuteronomy, Devarim, the 20th chapter, verse 16. But of the cities of these people, which Yahuah your Elohim doeth give for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. Everybody has that, right? Or something similar. Thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as Yahuah thy Elohim have commanded you. All right? But again, this is not justifying the wickedness that Dawood did by putting Uriah's, Bathsheba's husband on the front line. Because remember now, all at the same time, Uriah now was a faithful military man with the army of David. But again, it's not personal. When the Father says to make no covenants with a people, you're not supposed to make a covenant with those people. And this is the reason why we have the problems that we have today, because we always want to let our good friend come in also.
Mario, all those nations supposed to be killed completely.
Exactly. Eradicated, killed, destroyed, exterminated. I mean, whatever is going to help a person to understand what the Father really means. All right? You're not supposed to make any allegiance with these people here.
And also, more, if I might interject,
Mm-hmm.
in the future, when you see Israel having many troubles
Mhm.
is with the